For 50 years, one company decided how fast your computer would run, how hot your phone would get, and how much power the modern world could put in the palm of your hand. That company was Intel. And then, without a single headline announcing it, without a declared war, without a shot fired, Intel lost. Quietly, almost politely, to a company most Americans had never even heard of. This is the story of how a chip-making company from Taiwan, one that doesn't design a single chip you'd recognize, doesn't sell a single product with its name on the box, became the most important company on Earth, and how the American giant that invented the microprocessor watched it happen from the inside of its own boardroom. Rewind to 1985. Intel doesn't just make chips. Intel is chips. Every idea, every design, every factory, all under one roof. In Silicon Valley, they call this integrated device manufacturing. Translation: Intel does everything itself, and nobody does it better. For 30 years, this works spectacularly. Intel chips power nearly every PC on the planet. Its co-founder, Gordon Moore, doesn't just predict the future. He names the law that governs it. Transistor counts double roughly every 2 years. Moore's law becomes gospel, and Intel becomes its high priest. Nobody in this story thinks they're the underdog yet, not even the man who's about to become one. Meet Morris Chang, 55 years old, a Texas Instruments veteran, passed over for the CEO job he'd spent decades chasing. Instead of retiring bitter, he gets on a plane to Taiwan, a place with basically no chip industry to speak of, and does something nobody in the business believes will work. He starts a company that will design nothing. Chang's idea sounds almost too simple. What if a company just built the chips that other companies designed? No products of its own. No competing with its customers. Just world-class manufacturing. For hire. For anyone. He calls it Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. Investors are unconvinced. Rivals call it a factory for other people's ideas. Basically the semiconductor equivalent of a print shop. They are catastrophically wrong. Because Chang has spotted something everyone else missed. As chip design gets more specialized, more and more startups want to design chips, but building a cutting-edge factory costs billions of dollars. So what if you separated the designing from the building? Suddenly a garage full of engineers with one brilliant idea doesn't need a fab of their own. They just need TSMC. It's not just a company, it's an unlock. And an entire generation of chip companies, Qualcomm, NVIDIA, later Apple, build empires on top of it, without ever pouring a drop of silicon themselves. Back in California, Intel isn't worried. Why would they be? Intel makes the best chips in the world, in the best factories in the world, sold under the most trusted brand in tech. The foundry model looks, to Intel's executives, like a shortcut for companies too small or too poor to do it properly. And for a long time, they're right. Through the 90s and 2000s, Intel doesn't just lead the chip race. It is the race. Every 18 to 24 months, a smaller, faster, more efficient chip. Moore's law, delivered like clockwork, by the company that named it. There's a moment around 2005 when Apple quietly approaches Intel with an idea. What if Intel built the chip for a new device Apple's working on? Something called the iPhone. Intel says no. The margins don't look big enough. The volumes seem too small. It's a decision that will look, in hindsight, like someone declining a lottery ticket because the paper felt cheap. Apple goes elsewhere. And when its custom chips need somewhere to be built at scale, there's only one company on Earth capable of doing it at the size, speed, and precision Apple demands. Every empire has a moment nobody notices until it's too late. For Intel, that moment is a number: 10 nanometers. Shrinking transistors is the entire game. Smaller means faster, cooler, more efficient. Intel announces its 10 nanometer chips are coming, right on schedule, like always. Then, nothing. 2015 comes and goes. 2016 comes and goes. 2017 comes and goes. What was supposed to take 2 years takes 5. Intel's manufacturing, its crown jewel, the one thing no competitor could touch, is stuck. Delay after delay. Executives promise a fix. The fix doesn't come. And while Intel is stuck in the mud, TSMC is doing something almost boring in its consistency. Shipping. On time. Node after node. 16 nanometers, then 10, then 7. TSMC isn't just catching up anymore. For the first time in the company's history, the world's most advanced chips are no longer coming out of an Intel factory. This is the moment. Not a scandal, not a headline event. Just a quiet, humiliating reversal. The world's best chip maker, out-manufactured by the company everyone once dismissed as a print shop. When your factory falls behind, your customers notice first, and they don't wait around out of loyalty. Apple, which had used Intel processors in its Mac computers for 15 years, makes an announcement that lands like a thunderclap in Cupertino and a gut punch in Santa Clara. Apple is dumping Intel chips entirely. Its new in-house silicon, designed by Apple, manufactured by TSMC, will power every Mac going forward. The chip is faster, it runs cooler, it lasts longer on a single charge, and none of that would have been possible without TSMC's factories doing the one thing Intel's couldn't anymore: deliver on the roadmap. AMD, Intel's oldest rival, a company Intel had spent decades treating as an afterthought, makes its own quiet defection. AMD stops trying to build its own leading-edge factories altogether and goes all in on TSMC. With TSMC's manufacturing behind its designs, AMD's chips start beating Intel's on performance and price at the same time. NVIDIA, riding the biggest technology wave of the century, artificial intelligence, never even considers Intel's factories for its most important chips. It goes straight to TSMC. Every AI chip powering the generative AI boom, every processor training the models reshaping the global economy, is built in Taiwan, engineered elsewhere, by a company that still makes nothing under its own name. By the early 2020s, TSMC isn't manufacturing a niche of the industry. It's manufacturing the industry's future, while the company that once considered it beneath notice is fighting just to stay in the conversation. So how does a company with more money, more brand power, and a 50-year head start lose the most important technology race on the planet? Not to a rival with a better product, but to a company that doesn't even design the product? Ask the engineers, and a few answers keep coming back. Focus. TSMC does one thing: manufacturing. Every dollar, every research hour, every decision serves that single goal. Intel is simultaneously trying to design chips, build factories, compete with its own customers, and fend off accusations of being too slow to change, while, for a long stretch, also being led by executives more focused on stock buybacks than the punishing, expensive discipline of process engineering. Culture. TSMC's engineers describe a culture nicknamed, half-jokingly, the Night Shift Army. Factories that never stop. Teams that treat a yield problem like a national emergency. It's relentless, unglamorous, and extraordinarily effective. Intel, insiders say, grew comfortable. And comfortable is a dangerous word in an industry that halves its own achievements every 2 years by design. Trust. And maybe the most fatal blow of all, once a chip designer builds a relationship with TSMC's factories, switching away becomes almost unthinkable. Every design is tuned to the quirks of a specific manufacturing process. Leaving means starting over from scratch. TSMC didn't just win customers, it made losing them structurally difficult. By 2024, one statistic tells the whole story better than any boardroom drama could. TSMC manufactures the majority of the world's most advanced chips. Not a large share, not a leading share, the overwhelming majority. This isn't really a story with a villain or a victim. It's a story about complacency and, in its final act, about the hardest thing a fallen empire can attempt: a comeback. Intel brings in a new chief executive, Pat Gelsinger, a company veteran who makes an audacious promise. Intel will reclaim its manufacturing crown, opening its own factories to outside customers for the first time in the company's history, competing directly with the very company that dethroned it. It's a brutal, expensive fight. Billions of dollars poured into new nodes, missed targets, a board that eventually runs out of patience, and by late 2024, Gelsinger himself is out. A new leader, Lip Bhutan, takes the wheel with a blunter message: fewer promises, more proof. Under Tan, Intel's newest manufacturing process, called 18A, finally starts shipping in real volume, with yields improving month over month through 2026. It's the first sign in a decade that Intel's factories might genuinely be catching up, and in a twist almost too ironic for fiction, reports surface in 2026 that Apple, the very company whose defection helped cement TSMC's dominance, is quietly exploring a deal to have some future chips built in Intel's own factories again. Nothing confirmed, nothing guaranteed. But for the first time in years, the door isn't fully closed. Even so, Intel's own newest laptop chips still lean on TSMC's factories for a majority of their production. A startling admission that even the company trying to beat TSMC can't fully escape needing it yet. Tan calls TSMC's founders old friends. Calls the company a trusted partner. Not rivals to the death, but competitors who still, quietly, need each other. Morris Chang is in his 90s now. The company he started because nobody would give him the top job he wanted became more valuable than the company that passed him over. Today, TSMC manufactures the chips inside the phone in your pocket, the laptop on your desk, and the AI systems quietly rewriting how the world works, and almost none of it carries its name. There was no dramatic takeover here, no hostile bid, no headline moment where Intel's dominance visibly ended. Just a company that got very good at one single thing, decade after decade, while its biggest rival got distracted by everything else. In the end, the empire wasn't conquered. It just kept looking the other way. Until one day, it looked back, and the world had already moved to Taiwan.